You see those new apartment buildings going up in your city, the shiny ones with the fancy names, or that new highway they're so proud of. It looks like development, right? It looks like progress. But what if I told you that all of this, might be making the real problems in our cities worse? What if the very blueprint we're using to build our future is broken? This isn't just about traffic or trash. This is about a silent crisis happening in plain sight. A story about a global plan that got lost in translation on its way to our neighborhoods. We all know the feeling. The city feels like it's changing too fast and not for you. The air gets thicker, the commutes get longer, the gap between the shiny brochures and your daily reality feels like a canyon. For years, everyone from the politicians to the international experts has been talking about a solution. They call it the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. You might have seen the colorful wheel. It's a promise to fix everything by 2030, no poverty, clean water, good jobs, sustainable cities. It's a beautiful global promise. But here's the thing about a global promise. When it arrives in a city like Lagos or Nairobi or Accra, something happens to it. It gets filtered, twisted, and often completely misunderstood. Today, we're not going to talk about those global goals with fancy charts. We're going to follow their journey. We're going to see what happens when a well-meaning, one-size-fits-all plan tries to survive the chaotic, vibrant, and incredibly complex reality of an African city. This is the story of SDG localization, and it's the most important story not being told about our urban future.
Let's rewind a bit. 2015. World leaders gather and agree on these 17 goals. It was a monumental moment. The intention was, and still is, pure. They wanted a blueprint for a better world. The problem started not with the what, but with the how. How do you take a set of goals designed for the entire planet and make them work on a single street in Kinshasa? The answer that most governments and international bodies came up with was translation. Literally, they took the UN documents, translated them into French, Portuguese, Swahili, and then distributed them downwards.
From the national capital to the city mayor's office to a dusty shelf in a local government department, checkbox exercise complete, goals localized, except they weren't. This is the first and biggest failure. You see, localization was mistaken for translation. But speaking the same language doesn't mean you understand the same problems. Let me give you a concrete example. Take SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. One of its targets is about providing access to adequate, safe, and affordable housing. On paper, perfect. Everyone needs a house. So a city government under pressure to show progress looks at this target. How do you show you're providing housing? You build houses, big visible housing projects. You cut the ribbon, you get in the newspaper. But here's what the global goal doesn't see. It doesn't see the informal settlement that has been there for 30 years. A place that might look chaotic from the outside, but on the inside, it's a web of incredible social organization. There's a chairman everyone knows. There's a system for security. People have built their homes, their lives, their businesses, brick by painful brick. The global housing solution comes in, demolishes that entire social and economic fabric, and moves people into a concrete block 20 kilometers away from their jobs, from their community, from their entire life. The box is ticked, housing provided. But was the city made more sustainable?
No.
You've just created a dormitory that now requires a 2-hour expensive commute. You've shattered local economies. You've replaced a community with a building. This is the core problem. The SDGs arrived as a technical checklist, a set of metrics to be reported to the UN. They weren't understood as a framework for a conversation that needs to happen not in government offices, but in the streets. The goals talk about participatory planning, but the participation is often a single town hall meeting where plans are presented, not co-created. The people who live the problems every single day, the street vendor who knows the flow of the market, the mother who knows where the floodwater really collects, the youth group that has already started cleaning up a park. They are treated as beneficiaries, not as partners. Their intelligence, their lived experience is the most valuable data set we have, and it's almost entirely ignored. We ended up with a situation where cities are trying to fit their round, complex, organic realities into the square, neat, bureaucratic holes of the SDGs. And in the process, the real meaning of sustainability is getting crushed. So if just translating and imposing the goals from the top down is a recipe for failure, what does real localization actually look like? It's messy, it's slow, it's less about building and more about listening. It's about taking those 17 global goals and asking a very simple, very local question. What does this mean for us right here, right now? Let's break this down into what's actually happening on the ground, the good, the bad, and the messy.
First, let's talk about the bad and the messy because there's a lot of it. A major issue is the clash of calendars.
The SDGs have a deadline, 2030. Politicians have election cycles, 4 or 5 years. A mayor needs to show quick, visible wins to get reelected. You know what's a quick, visible win? A new bridge, a new stadium, a flashy bus system that runs on one main corridor. You know what isn't a quick, visible win? Spending 2 years in a slum community, building trust, mapping their intricate land rights, and co-designing an incremental upgrading plan that improves their lives step by step. That doesn't make for a good ribbon-cutting photo. So the political incentive is almost always to go for the big, shiny project that looks like the global idea of development, even if it's completely unsustainable for that specific city. Then there's the data problem. The SDGs are obsessed with data. How many people have access to clean water? How many kids are in school? This data is collected, often in broad surveys, and sent up the chain. But this data is often shallow. It tells you the what, but never the why. A survey might tell you that 40% of households in a district lack piped water.
But it won't tell you the story of Aisha, who has to pay a water vendor 5 times the official price, and who has to skip a meal sometimes to afford it. It won't tell you about the informal network of water resellers that has emerged, creating its own economy and its own power dynamics. The global system sees a number, 40%. Real localization sees Aisha.
It understands her daily trade-offs, and a solution designed for the number will be completely different from a solution designed with Aisha. Another layer of messiness is money. International funding for the SDGs often comes in big chunks. A $10 million loan for a sanitation project. That sounds great, but that money usually has very strict rules. It can only be spent on specific pre-approved technologies like a central sewage treatment plant. But what if the city's real need is not one giant plant, but 1,000 small-scale decentralized biodigester toilets that can also produce gas for cooking? The big funder says no, that's not in the rule book. The money has to be spent on the big, complicated, modern solution. So the city gets a sewage plant it can't fully maintain that only serves a small part of the city, and the real localized solution never gets funded. This is the tyranny of the global template. But it's not all doom and gloom. If you look closely, you can see sparks of what real localization could be. And it's happening from the bottom up, often in spite of the official system. Let me tell you a story from Kibera in Nairobi. It's one of the largest informal settlements in Africa. The official maps? For a long time, it was just a blank, gray space, a no-go zone, non-existent. But a group of young people from Kibera decided to change that. They started the Map Kibera project. With cheap GPS phones, they walked every single alley, every path. They mapped everything, not just streets, but water points, toilets, clinics, schools, dangerous spots, everything. They created a living digital map of their own community. This might seem simple, but it was revolutionary. Suddenly, they weren't a blank space. They were a place with data. When a cholera outbreak happened, they could map the spread and work with health workers to target responses. When a politician promised a new school, they could point to the exact best location on their map. This is localization in action. They took a global goal, like good health and well-being, and created their own tool, their own data, to make it real for their community. They inverted the power dynamic. Another example is in the world of waste. SDG 11 talks about reducing waste. The global solution is often build a big recycling plant. But in many African cities, the informal sector are the real recycling experts. In Accra, there's a whole ecosystem of waste pickers. They are the ones who go into the dump sites and landfills at great risk to their health and pull out plastic, metal, cardboard. They are the backbone of recycling. A truly localized approach wouldn't be to ignore them and build a fancy plant. It would be to go to them and ask, how can we make your job safer, more profitable, more efficient? How can we integrate you into the formal system? This is starting to happen. Some social enterprises are now providing waste pickers with protective gear, with fair scales to weigh their materials, and connecting them directly to companies that need the recycled material. This isn't a shiny one-off project. It's about strengthening a system that already exists. It's messy, it's complex, but it works. It's sustainable because it's rooted in the real economy of the city. This is the heart of localization. It's not about dropping a ready-made solution from the sky. It's about looking at the city as a living organism. It's about finding the existing energy, the existing solutions, the intelligence of the people, and then asking how the principles of the SDGs, like justice, sustainability, and inclusion, can help that local energy grow and flourish. It's about supporting the Street Vendors Association to get better storage so their food doesn't spoil, which tackles zero hunger. It's about working with a community to legally recognize their land tenure, which gives them security to invest in their own homes, tackling poverty. These are small, unsexy interventions, but they add up. They create a city that grows from the inside out, not one that has a blueprint imposed from the outside in. So after all this, where does that leave us? With a choice. We are at a crossroads in how we build our cities. The key moment is happening right now in 1,000 small meetings, in community halls, on street corners, where people are stopping asking, what should we do? And starting to say, this is what we are already doing, and this is how you can help. This is the great untold story of urban Africa. It's not a story of helplessness waiting for salvation. It's a story of quiet, determined innovation. It's a story of a future that is being built not according to a single rigid plan, but through 1 million adaptations. The real sustainable city of the future won't look like a picture from a UN report. It will be grittier. It will be more complex. It will be more human. It will be a patchwork of formal and informal, of high-tech and low-tech, of old and new, all woven together by the people who call it home. And that is a city worth building. So let's bring it all together. The Sustainable Development Goals are not the problem. They are a compass, a reminder of the direction we all want to go in. A world without poverty, with clean cities, with opportunity for all. That's a direction everyone can agree on. The problem has been our navigation system. We've been trying to use a map made for one part of the world to navigate the entirely different terrain of Lagos or Dar es Salaam or Luanda, and we've been getting lost. Real SDG localization is the act of redrawing the map yourself from the ground up. It's the understanding that a goal about safe and affordable housing in Munich means one thing, but in Maputo, it means something completely different. The solution is not to abandon the goals, but to reclaim them, to translate them not just into local languages, but into local contexts, local priorities, and local actions. It means mayors and planners need to become listeners, not just commanders. It means international partners need to become flexible funders of local ideas, not rigid imposers of global templates. And most importantly, it means that you, me, everyone who lives in these cities, we're not just spectators. Our knowledge of our own block, our own street, our own daily struggles is data. The future of our urban world depends on a simple but profound shift, from seeing cities as problems to be fixed, to seeing them as living networks of people to be supported.
If this story about our cities made you think, then the next video on this channel is one you can't afford to miss.